This week, our guest is award-winning comic book writer Christyle. We chop it up about his newest Kickstarter, making his child's first comic book, and the importance of why as an artist. Not only that, we get into the origin of his name, which is kinda cool. All that and so much more, so stick around and see what else Damon does. DJ Prime, play the music. Welcome to Damon Does, Conversations with Creatives, your nerd space safe place and where you may find your new fave. I am Damon, father of two, husband of one, and leader of this here Demodcast. My next guest is a father, author, and his first book was a children's book, which is most importantly his youngest daughter's favorite. Ladies and gentlemen, or wherever you are on the non-binary spectrum, give it up for Christyle!
I'm going to use that for a soundbite. I like that.
Thank you for taking time out to talk to a perfect stranger. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. I'm about 3 hot dogs in, so I'm great.
Is this for business or pleasure?
Is it rarely for business? It's always pleasure.
Well, you never know. One of these days I may run across a competitive eater. So,
if I told you that I was trying to be that in high school, would you believe me?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to be that in high school. I found out that there's a whole scheme to it, and I just couldn't figure it out.
That was a random bit of trivia. I was not expecting this early. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
I'm good at that.
So before we get into the rest of this, obviously going to be a creative conversation, where would you like to be found on the internet?
I hate to be found on the internet. I'm kidding. You can find me on Twitter at hashtag, what's that stupid sign? The @ Christyle Inc. Everything I say will be with the S being shared between Chris and Style. So it's Christyle Incorporated, but the INC. And then I'm more active on Instagram now. That's Christyle_Inc. If you go on my profiles, you can find my link tree, which will give you the rest of my other crazy links. So you can get my Substack, my Blue Sky. I rarely use that. My TikTok, I rarely use that. My email, I use that all the time. So I'm very easy to find once you find me.
All righty. Are you ready to have a creative conversation?
I'm as ready as I'll be.
When did you know you wanted to get into comics?
What a loaded question to ask me on the very first one. I wanted to get into comics about 2, 3 years ago. I realized that I was old enough to held my own destiny. I've always wanted to write, and I decided to get into writing a very, very niche video game with a couple friends that were all programmers. And when the program went south, I took the stories and said, I'm going to use them still, but I need to figure out what. So it was either chapter books or comic books. And I just felt like the visual media of comic books just worked out better. So I want to say about definitely 2 or 3 years ago.
Were you a writer before this, I assume, or no?
No, I wrote recreationally. I started writing a lot around middle school. I had one of those like very cool dads that were like, you don't want to do this. You want to have an actual job so that you can never starve. And I was like, well, you know best. And he was right. He was very right. Being a writer with my work ethic that I had back then, I would have not done anything right. So he was very right for that. As I got older, I realized that I have the work ethic and the logic and the skill set to do it. And I decided to, try to apply it. And this is where I'm at.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So did you write recreationally? I think that's what you said, but I just want to be sure. So did you write recreationally in between, as a kid and then, going through your career path and then now? Or is this something that was dormant for a while, then you just jumped back into it just fairly recently?
This is dormant. Back then, on this little known website called MySpace, I used to post like short stories And people who followed me or didn't, even people who didn't even follow me or in my friends list, they would read it and they would comment on it. And I had a very similar, like, small niche reader base, but I didn't touch it after that. As everybody says, once COVID hits, everybody started to get more creative because they had nothing else to do. And I want to give COVID that praise. Sit in the house all day and you've exhausted your entire list of games and movies and whatnot. You tend to want to see something new, so you create, and that's where we're at.
Speaking of creation, I know you've got a Kickstarter for a new comic book, Dream Match Revolution. Tell us more about it.
Dream Match Revolution is a very personal story of mine. It's supposed to be a inspirational wrestling comic, but it's about a rookie whose only aim in the wrestling business is to wrestle her idol, the very same idol that got her into the business as a fan. When she joins the company, she's only allowed to do everything but wrestle her idol. And she reluctantly does everything that people tell her to do, even though it's against her own wishes. She's just about to quit. She's just thinking about, man, I'm never gonna get my actual thing that I wanted. I'm never gonna, if I do what people tell me to do, it pushes me further and further away. Until she meets her idol, and her idol says, if you want to wrestle me, you have to do the opposite of what's being told, and you have to start winning your matches to be able to wrestle me. Forget what everybody's telling you. Your dream exists within you. You are the only one that can jumpstart it. So she decides to go against her general manager's wills and wishes and decides to, I'm going to climb the ranks. And so in doing so, she now has to see what that path looks like. Like I said before, it's a story that's supposed to be, inspirational and to teach people that you can only remain on the sideline so long until you have to get in the game. And I'm hoping that people read it and get fired up to do more in their lives because they're having it's been a very large stagnation, so to speak, with people that I've talked to and I've seen, and I just want people off the couch.
I love it. That's awesome. Do you have a wrestling background? I assume you're a fan of professional wrestling. Did you take that any steps further?
I got into wrestling with my older brother when I was a kid. If he watched wrestling, I watched wrestling. When he didn't watch it, I didn't watch it. I was just doing whatever that he did. And so when I moved away from him and got my own persona, wrestling kind of took a hit. I watched it kind of sparingly, but I came back to it a couple years ago when it started to get kind of good again. I even traveled to one of the bigger wrestling events that happened this year. And if you go back and watch it, you can see me in the front row on like the hard camera enjoying myself the entire promo, the entire event. But yeah, no, I'm just a fan. I don't really have a wrestling background. I just like it, and I felt like wrestling just it fit this story's theme better than any other sport, just because wrestling is such a theatrical drama, and once people see it like that, then they can take it for what it is.
It makes perfect sense. Lifelong wrestling fan myself. I'm watching less of it recently, in and out of the fandom my whole life. Can't get away from it.
If it helps, I've been going to a bunch of like smaller like indie wrestling promos. That's been firing me up more and more because I'm getting to see grassroots people that are not making the same money as people on TV doing the same thing that they love in hopes of getting there. And so you get to kind of get that like I'm on the ground floor with you as you build. It feels so much better.
I'm not too far from Louisville, Kentucky, where OVW is
Okay.
from. So that's where Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, and Batista came from.
Oh, you're with a legacy arena then.
So yeah, yeah. What do you wish you had known when you had started out?
I wish I really understood why I write. When I first started, and not from my daughter's book, that was something I was doing on top of making comics. But when I first started, I looked and I saw that I had the resources and I had the assets to make the stuff, but I didn't have the why. And so when you create without the why, you can make stuff, you can make it look pretty, but you don't really have a purpose. And so, like a lot of people get stuck just making things, hoping that a purpose will come later. I kind of figured that out right at the crux of when I was getting that rolling, getting that ball rolling. I wish I knew at the very beginning about like what do I want to say and who do I want to say it to. Once you figure those two things out, that makes the process extremely better because you then know who's in the mindset of who's going to read the story versus I hope somebody reads it. It's so much better.
That makes a lot of sense.
If only I knew it from back then.
Would you be willing to share your why?
With Dream Match, I told you that one's why. That one's why is about getting people inspired to achieve what they were put here to do. All they do is wish and want, but they don't put any action into it. And I hope that my book can inspire people to do so. If you look at other books I've done, like what's another good one? Good Blood Money is another one. It is a ex-military burnout who takes on the life of a assassin to pay for her brother's medical bills. So it begs the question, how many people must die to save one life? And you will see in the story that she is adamantly killing people. It has a comedy aspect to it, but she's trying to find when does it end. And in that story, it's supposed to teach people that if you go down, and this is for any path, if you go down any path that lies within or without your morals, or it goes into a darker narrative, you can only do it so many times until you are underneath. And so you have to kind of figure out, do you want to go that route or not? It's a bit of a morale chase. So the stories like that, it's always I want to give you a piece of what I have gone through in this narrative so that maybe the next person can read it and not do what I did. Not that I've killed anybody. I've killed nobody. But just the whole pathway of making those kind of choices where you might get overtaken. People have vices. I'm speaking as blank as I can. Well, people do have vices, and it's one of those things of like how many times can you go back to the well before it's too late?
You're talking about your why. You're talking about for each individual project, not your overall why you create why. Did I explain that better?
I mean, no, no. Well, maybe I misunderstood the question. I won't take away what I just said for like all my stories, but genuinely, my why is to take my experiences and put it in my narratives, and so that I can share a piece of myself of my knowledge in a way that people can absorb it. That's not so direct, so that I'm not touching on too much of their personal life because when people read things and something touches something like directly, a lot of people get turned off by that and they don't read it or they don't finish it because it's like, okay, well now you're getting to something that you have no idea about, not realizing that the person who wrote it does get it. So instead of hitting it directly, I kind of go around it so that I guide you back to it and you can kind of see from your even your own turmoil. It's just me trying to find ways to help people heal what they're going through, in a sense.
What's your go to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Oh, you know what? I know the answer. I don't know why. I just I go to this Korean fried chicken spot and I get these Gangjeong chicken wings, which is just a spicy cinnamon wing, and it's my absolute favorite. I lose my mind when I see it at the table.
How did you discover this delicacy?
I was going to a international store far from my house with my daughter. I want to say it was last summer. Maybe it was summer. No, last summer. It was last summer. Went last summer, and as we pulled up, she taps my shoulder and goes, "Dad, look." And I turn around and I'm like, That says Korean fried chicken. And we just looked at each other and was like, we gotta go in there. Like whatever we have plans to go do, we must go see this through. And we walked in there and I walked out and was like, yeah, no, this has to be a top three best place ever.
That's awesome. I'm glad I had the microphone off because I started laughing when you said, "Well, we got whatever we got planned. We're doing this now." That's awesome. I love it. And in my experience, Koreans do fry some good wings.
They do. I'm so glad that we had those black GIs to come train them.
What are you curious about?
What a question that is. No one's ever asked me that, which makes me feel like I might be under experienced in questions. I don't I want to say maybe too much. It's not even one thing, it's just a generalization of curiosity itself. I feel like if I think about thinking about being curious about, about like, one thing, I'm curious about another thing, and then it kind of like builds up to it. So I guess the like uncertainty in a way.
What's a rabbit hole you've gone down recently?
I just did this like today actually. I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out like Joe Budden's podcast. I don't know how I got to it, but I did a deep dive into like him personally, going from him being a rapper at like, 17, and then him having a $2 million a month podcast. And I just wanted to see like, is there something I'm missing that I haven't done? Because it's clearly like, I mean, not everybody can make 2,000 or $1 million, but it's like there has to be a route. So I recently started doing my own like dive into it and found a lot of information that I could actually apply, which I didn't think I was going to. So shout outs to Joe Budden.
Yep, I'm going to ask. What is something that you discovered that a podcaster could put into use?
Something that a podcaster could put into use. Joe Budden, prime example. He showed that he had a presence given his history and what he was. He had a presence in the music industry, and he was able to pinpoint with great information and great accuracy everything that was happening with the rap world. He broke down the 2007 Kanye West 50 Cent beef, which it wasn't really a beef, it was like a showdown. And we as the consumers didn't realize that it was not an actual spin-off, not actual like challenge. It was the industry trying to erase the power that 50 Cent had because he was a guy who was clearly unmanageable. And so they needed a reset. And the reset came in Kanye West. It's almost the very same reset that we got with Drake and Kendrick, where now you're starting to see the value in Drake and more of a value in Kendrick as far as the labels go. And so when you have someone like that who is in the industry saying, like all these secret terms and trying to like teach people why things are going out, as they are, you bring a value. So when you bring a value to your art, to your craft, you got to start asking for more money and believing in yourself. Joe Budden walked away from to me, a very lucrative Spotify podcasting deal, which when you look at all the terms, it wasn't that lucrative at all. But I would have taken it because I don't understand value to that level. He said no, turned around and sold his podcast on Patreon, which now makes $2 million a month. That's like more than 10 times what Spotify was willing to pay him. So when you find value, you have to bet on yourself and you have to stand 10 toes down. And I feel like any podcaster worth their salt would do that or should do that.
What should I ask you that I didn't know enough to ask?
Well, if I ask it, then you're going to ask me, which makes this question moot. You should definitely ask me about my comic that I made on my kids.
You should definitely answer that question too, because you're right. I am going to ask that question. That's the point.
Just the all-knowing eye opened up. Okay, so I was writing my very first series, Jazz, and I met somebody through another friend who was like, I really want to make a comic book. He's a good artist, just has very differing work ethic. But at the time, I didn't know any better, and so I was like, well, you know what? I have some capital that I could put aside for you, but I want to take a break from this series I'm working on and do something completely different. And I realized that I had already did a kids book, and so I looked around and was like, well, I could do like a kids comic, but kids don't read comics. So if I were to sell this thing later, it's going to be really awkward to try to sell a, and this is like a kid is like a 4 or 3 year old or 4 year old. So I think at the time, my oldest daughter had like bright red hair that she had gotten colored, and she had like walked right past me, and I was kind of like, that is very comic-esque of her, and it just snapped, and I was like, I should make a comic book about my two kids as superheroes, and the villain antagonist should be me as a monster. And it just worked out, and I wrote it, and then I kind of like sat on it for a while. I workshopped it. I didn't really give them much say. I just told them, hey guys, just kind of like talk in a room for me like real quick so I can really make sure I'm getting all this dialogue right. And everything was everything. So yes, I do have a comic right now that's available to read for free digitally, called TNT Super Sisters. TNT is the initials of both my kids. Both of them have T names. One's Taryn and one's Talia, and they just kick ass.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Do they get a kick out of it?
Um, they did. Both of them really liked it, and then as they got older, only one really liked it. The other one got jaded because the character that is portrayed as her doesn't have the same hair anymore.
Ah.
Oh,
Gotcha.
she's actually, as I'm saying it, she's actually right in front of me, like pantomiming these words to me. She says she loves it, but it's not her. Not realizing what her really is. She
Right.
has to understand that like when like writers write, is to depict at the core of a person. She doesn't like it because of the hair. That's all that she really has an issue with. We are planning on doing a revamp of this small, very one-shotty series. So it'll give both of them a chance to revamp themselves so that they don't have any issues, which, as we can see through history, in a couple years from now, they're going to have issues again.
If you could create a new holiday, what would it commemorate?
We don't have a National Air Fryer Day. I think we should go ahead and get that going.
A National Air Fryer Day. How would you go about celebrating Air Fryer Day?
You know how they have like baby showers? You would just simply have like a air fryer unveiling day. Like you would get like there would be a special air fryer that people get. You would have to apply for a government grant to pay for it, but you just kind of have like a air fryer unveiling. There's alcohol, there's music, there's dancing, fellowship. It would really help out with like men's mental health just to kind of sit around and be like, hey, I got that new air fryer from, from the Ninja. And there's guys sitting around like, oh man, congrats, high-fiving you. It's just the little things.
What would be the official Air Fryer Day meal?
It depends on the air fryer itself, but definitely grilled chicken has to be out.
So we're going grilled chicken? Okay, cool. Why create?
Why not? When you live life in such a way that you can make, experiences for yourself that are both positive and negative, why would you not put that into a tangible art form? It's kind of like if more people did art, we would have a lot more Rembrandts. We would have a lot more like Tchaikovsky's. We would have a lot more Kendrick Lamar's. But of course, the downside of it is that we have more people doing art. We can potentially have more Hitlers. So, but with that black and white feel to it, it's such a thing of like, I want that risk. If you can count on your hand 10, experiences that made or break you, but you still survived, you need to document it. And that to me is what art is. It's just documenting certain, experiences for the next person. And they don't even have to make sense to everybody. It's a fact that you put it out there. That enough is enough.
Christyle, thank you very much for your time. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
Final thoughts. Lead with intent in creation. When Christyle said this, it hit me like a kick to the chest. This is Sparta! Personally, I've created my own art just by deciding what I wanted to write or draw and then going from there. Looking at it from this perspective makes so much sense to me because what it brings is clarity, and with clarity comes focus. If you start with the intention of what you want your art to say, it's easier to know what to keep and what to edit out. I'm aware of how simple this is, but I'm sure someone else needs to hear this too. Thank you for joining us, whether it's your first time or this time. If you like what you heard, tell the world. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, or go to your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star review. Either way will help more join the conversation. And until next time, see it, hear it, speak it, live.